This is Rob Tebbutt for Boxing Social. I'm delighted to be joined today by unbeaten cruiserweight star of tomorrow, Chris Billam-Smith. How are you, Chris?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Very well.
First time I've actually sat down and interviewed you, isn't it? I think we've known each other for a fair bit now, but this is the first time we've done this.
Yeah, first interview, yeah, but had a wild night in Glasgow. Sat in the hotel eating pizza, I believe. But yeah, it's first interview.
Well, I'm glad we've finally been able to do it. For those of our viewers who aren't as familiar with you now, as they will be, I'm sure, at the end of this interview, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Start off with how you got involved in boxing.
So I started boxing when I went to college. I met a friend of mine called Dean, and I went and started training with him, and went and watched him fight. Loved the atmosphere, wanted to get involved, and then that was it, really. It just spiraled out of control over the years from there, really.
Did you ever think about doing it before when you were younger? Were you involved in any other sports, or did boxing just kind of fall on your doorstep?
Well, my brother took me a couple of times when I was younger, literally a handful of times. My older brother Ben took me when I was probably 13, 14, so I went a couple of times then. I played a lot of other sports, most sports. I played football mostly, but badminton, tried fencing for a bit, all sorts, trampolining. Yeah, it's a lot of strange sports, hockey. But yeah, football was always my sport, but then before I started boxing.
Fencing's a quite interesting one. I think that's probably the first time that I've ever been told that. What was fencing like?
I only did it for a bit. I was like I think I was like in year 6 at the time. So I was only young. I was only about 10 years old. But I suppose maybe that's quite good for your boxing, quick feet and all that. So surprised more boxers don't do it, to be honest.
What was it that attracted you to boxing? Obviously, you said that you were taken down to the gym when you were sort of slightly older than the normal quote unquote person is when they first take up the sport. What was it that attracted you to it? I mean, often people talk about the bug of boxing going down. You hit the pads for a little bit and then you're kind of hooked. Was it that for you?
Yeah, it's a strange sport because you're getting punched in the face, but it's I guess because it's so hard, it's so rewarding. I played a lot of team sports, played like hockey and football to decent levels and stuff like that. But you could have the best game of your life and still lose the game, whereas at least you're in control with boxing. So it's what you get out what you put in. Whereas, like I said, you could put in all your heart and soul into a football match and still lose, and that can be disappointing.
Tell me a little bit about your amateur background. Something that we spoke about during that pizza-filled night in Glasgow was your history in the amateurs. Why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about kind of your experience that you had before you got into the pro game?
Yeah, so I had 43 fights, won about 31. I had 18 months out of a shoulder surgery, but I boxed as an elite from my after I won the novices class Bs after 14 fights. Then I was boxed as an elite after that, so I was always boxing good kids, best kids in the country, reached a couple of ABA finals, had GB assessments, things like that. So I was gutted, never got that ABA title because I was in 2 finals, so I was devastated with that. But everything happens for a reason, and I can't complain where I'm at now.
Tell us a little bit about those ABAs. You mentioned then that you lost in 2 ABA finals, or you didn't reach where you wanted to in the ABAs. Tell me a little bit about that. As I understand, there's a story behind that.
Well, so the first ABA final was Jack Massey. So I boxed 5 times to get to the final. Boxed all different styles on the way up, and that was great. It was 6 fights in 8 weeks, and that was a really good year for me back in 2013. And I boxed Jack Massey. It was a close fight. I thought I'd won it. He thought he'd won it. It's one of them. Got out the ring. There was people saying I was robbed and stuff like that. But I've watched it back, and you can argue either way. So I've got no complaints about it. I'm not one to scream robbery exactly. You still got a graft. It's not the end of the world. And then the next year I went in with a shoulder injury into ABAs, got beat in the quarters, and then had a year out, and then 2016 I went back in, boxed Chev Clark in the final. Chevron Clark, who was obviously a good lad, done very well in the World Championships and Europeans and stuff now. So and the Commonwealth Games. So yeah, I ended up having 2 fights with Chev. I won in the ABA final, then one after. But yeah, it was a good experience for me. And yeah, then I had GB assessments and stuff like that, but I didn't get on, so decided to turn pro.
You decided to turn pro. You're now under the guidance of Shane McGuigan, who's your trainer, boxing here at the lovely McGuigan's gym. Was it always the plan to turn pro after your amateur career? Did you have other options? Did you have other areas of your life that you potentially were looking to go down?
No, like once I decided I wanted to do boxing, that was always going to be the goal. Obviously, as an amateur, you want to do it right. You want to reach, get on the Great Britain squad and box in the Olympics and things like that. And then I decided to turn pro when I didn't get on the GB squad. And obviously, I've been up sparring George and David Hay when he was here with Shane. And then I decided. When I decided to turn pro, I thought I'd start at the top and work my way down, and thankfully Shane took me on.
What was that like? Tell me about how that came to pass. Did you make a phone call? Were you asked about joining the stable? Was it something that happened very quickly? Was it something that took a little bit of time? Obviously, you mentioned that you came down to do some sparring.
So I started sparring George I think the first time I sparred him was about November. When would that have been? 2015 or 16? Can't figure it out now. But 15 it would have been when he just started working with Shane. And then he was like, "Oh, you'll be good work for David because of the speed." So I worked with them. I mainly worked with. Kept getting invited back to spar George, which was obviously a great experience for me. And then. So then as soon as I decided I wanted to turn pro, as soon as I found out about the GB, I thought I'm going to turn pro after the ABAs because that was in December, and then the following April was the ABAs, so I thought I might as well go for the ABAs one last time. And then, so I texted Shane, but he didn't get back to me because he was in Vegas for Frampton's fight, and then he stayed over there in Miami for David's training camp. Then he had David's fight, so I was like, I'll text him after David beats Bellew. Achilles snapped, lost to Bellew. I was like, better leave it another week. So I texted him again after that. So it had gone on about 4 months. We were in about mid-March, and I called him, and obviously we had a chat, and he's like, I might be able to take you on maybe part-time, blah, blah, blah. Then he just said, can you come up and spar George tomorrow, and then we'll have a chat about you turning pro. And I didn't think... Really, I thought he was more getting me up to spar George than have a meeting. So I came to spar George, and then let's go upstairs, have a chat. And I went in the conference room over there, and Barry, Blaine, Jake, and Shane were all sat there, and I was like, "This is real. This is absolutely nuts." And then Barry said, "We're willing to take you on." It was a bit of a surreal moment, and it was couldn't stop smiling on the way home.
You don't often stop smiling anyway, from my experiences with you. Just tell me a little bit about what that was like. I mean, as an amateur, you're before you've turned pro, you're coming over to spar guys like George Groves, who we'll come on to later. David Hay, you're walking into a room, you've got Barry McGuigan there. What's that like for you? I mean, it strikes me as something that could potentially be a little bit overwhelming initially. Tell me a little bit about that.
I guess when you're coming up to spar, you're sort of in a mindset of you're there to do a job, and you're going to see them because they're there, they've invited you up, so it's not like you walk into a room and they go, you're coming to spar, and you're like, whoa, that's Barry McGuigan. So like it's a lesser blow, but yeah, it's a bit surreal. And then even now I sit in here sometimes, sat in this seat I'm sat in now, and I look around and I shake my head and smile to myself. I think this is a bit surreal. I'm lucky to do what I do with such great people around me. It's just it is a bit, like I said, a little bit surreal from time to time.
How beneficial is that for you? You mentioned that you sort of started at the top with coming into the gym with, don't kick my camera over, coming into the gym with Shane McGuigan and seeing the likes of George around. Obviously now you've got Josh Taylor, Luke Campbell's recently joined the gym. How beneficial is that to you as somebody who's looking to make their name in a professional game, that you've got these world level, elite level fighters around you for you to learn from?
Yeah, it's you surround yourself with people that are better than you. You can only get better. So I'm very fortunate to have such a great stable of fighters around me, and everyone's a winner with that winning mentality. And I've always had that that's sort of why, like I touched on earlier about boxing was for me, because I was in control. I hated losing at football. I used to cry when I was a kid when I lost at football, and then even if I played the best game of my life, you got 10 other people who can not perform. So so now that we've got that winning mentality in the gym, and it's great. We all graft hard together. We have a great laugh, and everyone's a real good personality, and everyone gels really well. And then the talent on top of it. So yeah, it's fantastic.
Tell me a little bit about your relationship with George Groves. I know you guys spar a lot. You're also very tight outside the ring. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, it started as a one-way street, I believe. Probably back in when I went and watched him against De Gale back in 2010 or 11, that was at the O2. And then I followed his career from there, and he's always been my favourite British fighter, really. And then went and watched him for Glenn Johnson at the XL, all those sort of fights. When I got a chance to spar him, it was mad. And then now we've become become pals in the gym. And yeah, it's good. Like, we get on really well. We got similar banter and stuff like that. So we have a good laugh, and we gel really well. And then we have tear-ups like about 2 hours ago in the ring for helping him prepare for Callum Smith. So yeah, it's good. We get on well. And it's when I think about it, I know I've used the word a lot, but it is really surreal. It's mental how someone that you sort of idolised has become you're a sparring partner for, and you become friends with them, and you're surrounded by people like that. It's mad.
What was it like the first day that you went and sparred George, having watched him on the TV, having had him as your favourite British fighter for so long? Sort of in my head, it was probably not the case, but in my head I've got this image of you sort of running up and saying, "Oh, hi George, how are you?" And George he has his own way, sometimes very dry. George, what was that like, the initial phase, and how different is it now with you two as opposed to then?
Yeah, well, like I said earlier, like, you're there to do a job, so you don't want to be a fan. Yeah. And like, I'm not that sort of person who's going to run up and, I don't think I think I sparred him about 6 or 7 times before I asked for a picture with him, and that was only because someone else who was sparring him asked for a picture. I didn't want to be that person, so I think that helped me in a way, like, build that relationship, because you don't want this lad who's, oh yeah, I was sparring George Groves for this and I'm whatever. It was just there to do a job, and then after I said, look, it's an honour to spar you. And then me and my brother and my mate Lee Cutler, who were there the first day in the old gym, and we drove home, and that was it. I think we did 6 rounds at the old gym. That was the first time, and then the next time I sparred him, it was always at George's gym, and then obviously we're here now at McGuigan's gym.
Tell me about the tracksuits. People talk to me about the tracksuits, you and George. What's the story behind that?
So George got tracksuits for the Eubank fight, and we were all staying in the same hotel, and then George I was like, oh, they're I walked in, I think it was George's room, there was like George, his agent, and the boys in there. I was like, oh, their tracksuits are decent. They've got their names printed on them. I was like, decent. And he was like, do you want one? And I was like, what? So I ran in there, grabbed a St. Gigi tracksuit, and then, I was buzzing. Obviously, he didn't have my name on it. I was tempted to go and get my name printed on it to pretend I was actually part of the team, and George got it made, but I thought it was a bit too far. Then I was ordering tracksuits for my fight, and I was going to Shane, oh, look at these Under Armour ones. He's like, I don't like the sizes of Under Armour. And I was like, looking for all these different tracksuits, and then the ones that are pretty much the same as George's came up, and I was like, decent price of buying like 6 of them for all the lads. And I was like, I've got them here, like, just started taking the piss basically, and saying that I know where you've got those tracksuits, and I was like, oh yeah. So yeah, that was we've got similar tracksuits, but he got Mansion Bet as a sponsor for the Eubank fight, and now he wears black and red, so I think he's copying me because they're Bournemouth colours, and I think he's actually a fan of me more than I'm a fan of him.
Good answer. As you've just alluded to there, you're a Bournemouth boy. Tell me what it was like growing up in Bournemouth. I mean, I've not been to Bournemouth. I'm looking to go in a few weeks, September the 15th. But what's it like in Bournemouth growing up?
It's great. It's a very nice part of the world. It's very friendly in the sense of there's not loads of crime there, there's not loads of danger. It's a very good place to bring up your kids. My parents are actually from London, from South London, and they moved down there when I was 3, so I've lived there ever since then. And it's nice down there. It's not known for its boxing, or it wasn't known for its sport as much, but now obviously football-wise we're doing well. And then the boxing's getting there. Steve Bendel started putting on shows down there, and then I turned pro and we've started doing shows down there. And so there's a lot of good sport going on there. You've got Georgia Hall, who's a golfer. She just won a championship the other day on the PGA. So it's building a bit of a rep, hopefully. Few little gems are coming through, and it's good. So the kids in the area hopefully got some inspiration there that people from that area can go on to do well in sports, because you've got the football team, you've obviously got at Georgia Hall in golf, you've got hopefully me in boxing and other lads in boxing around the area. So but growing up, it's a seaside town. It's great. You just spend every day on the beach in the summer when it's nice, like we've had. Hence my fantastic tan that you complimented me on earlier. And it's a great place. I love. It'll always be home.
As you mentioned that you've boxed there a couple of times. You're looking to box there soon. What's it like for you boxing? I mean, Bournemouth, as you say, is not really known for its boxing, but you're somebody who's gathered quite a following, quite a gathering from your Bournemouth support. Is that important to you? What's that like for you when you do venture back home? Do people stop you? People recognise you? Yeah,
it's a bit mad. we were in the town centre one day, and I was with my girlfriend at the time, and this random bloke just goes, "Chris," and I turned around, didn't recognise him. He goes, "You don't know me, you're a great boxer, keep going," and just walked off. And I was like, that was the first time it ever happened. I was like, that's crazy, like that's absolutely mad. And it's a real nice feeling, like to be appreciated by people. And then I go back to my amateur club, and the kids there message me for advice and stuff, or like on like social media and stuff, and they all want pictures and stuff. It's nice because like it's great. You need that inspiration. You need to have an idol to inspire you to push on and show you that it can be done. Like there's no reason why the kids at all the clubs around there, or any club, can't go on to do what turn professional and do great things. It's just having that belief. So it's a small town. It's a bit of a small town, but yeah, it's nice. We've got a great following down there. Everyone's been really, really great. The media have been good as well. The Echo Football Club just got in contact with me, and they're going to sort me out some training kit and stuff as well. So it's really nice. So just any of you are watching there, you can sort me out some tickets. That'd be great, because they are gold dust.
We'll see what we can do for you on that regard. Probably a bit of a silly question, having known you for a little bit and doing this interview, but I'll ask anyway. Where did the nickname The Gentleman come from?
We were thinking of different names in the gym, and I was like, the only one I could think of was Golden Child, because my mum calls me it, even though my two older brothers, even though I've got two older brothers, but I was always Golden Child because I got away with a lot, and I could do no wrong as such, but because I was the youngest. But they were like, nah, doesn't really. Obviously, Danny Jacobs had that and stuff like that. And then Shane just come out of it one day. I believe it was because of my manners and stuff like that. So I'll take that. You have to ask my girlfriend if I'm a gentleman or not. I hope she'd say I am. But Shane came up with it, and that was it really.
Well, it's good to know. Shane McGuigan, as you've just mentioned, your trainer, one of the top trainers in world boxing, not only just British boxing at the minute. Tell me what it's like working with him day to day. I'm always fascinated to know relationships between fighters and trainers, particularly somebody in Shane who is very young. He's very young and he deals with a lot of young fighters in the gym. Talk to me about your relationship.
It's really grown, to be honest. Like when I started coming up here, I didn't think I'd get on as well. Not that I thought I'm not going to get on with them. I just didn't realise how well we'd get on, and like him and Josh Pritchard have become two of my best mates because we spend 5 days a week together, Monday to Friday. Sometimes they pop down to Bournemouth, or sometimes like this weekend I'm staying here Friday night, and me and Shane are going out for some dinner and stuff like that. So it's nice to have a relationship with your coach like that, but he's very good at keeping that balance of when you step in the ring or when you're in the gym and you're training with him, and during the training session that it's professional. In the changing rooms we'll be bantering, but then once the hands are wrapped, it's serious. That gets switched off, and we get down to fight time, and it gets serious. But yeah, it's great. I could never have imagined how great it would be for me, because I really think they've helped me just in general. I've just enjoyed myself and I've come out my shell a lot more, and we have such a great laugh. Like there's never a day in the gym without bundles of laughs. So it's important to do that, because it can be a lonely sport and it's a long process. So you've got to enjoy the process as much as you have the wins every 3 months or whatever they may be. So yeah, it's great. It's a really great atmosphere.
That's Shane as a person. From a technical point of view, what does he do well? I mean, a lot of people who I speak to about Shane or other fighters, for example, Josh Taylor, have spoke about sort of his technical preparation and sitting down on your shots and making fighters fight in that pro style. As somebody who had a lot of experience as an amateur, how different are you now under Shane's guidance, and what sort of stuff has he had you doing that has turned you into a pro fighter?
Well, as an amateur, I was an out-and-out boxer, because when I started, it was the point scoring system, so I was very much in and out and all that, and then I had to adapt slightly when they changed the system. But I didn't adapt as well as I could have, because I was only training twice a week with my amateur coach, because that was when the gym was open. That's how some amateur gyms work. But yeah, he does so much that there's so much. People talk about the way you sit down in shots and stuff like that, but it's what you're doing when you're not punching a lot of the time. Like he's so clever when it comes to that, because boxing is so much more than just punching and throwing a punch and being able to deliver a punch. You've got to set it up. You've got to pick your moments. You've got to pick your shots. Especially in my division, you can't just be throwing punches all the time. You've got to be switched on at all times. Everyone in my division can punch, so you've got to be switched on. You've got to nullify opponents. You've got to know how to beat each opponent, and Shane knows it all. He's got so many different styles in the gym, and everyone's successful with him. So it goes to show how his depth of knowledge is, and it's not just. A lot of trainers are known for their one style of coaching. Shane will just mould his style around fighters' styles. So yeah, it's mad how much he knows, and you're always learning. He's willing to learn as well, so he'll say, we need to work on this, and he'll figure out a way to get you to do something, and then you do it, and it starts working, and little tweaks here and there. It's not like he's sets just a specific routine for all of us. It's all different. We're all trained differently. We're all in different weight divisions, so that's how it's got to be done. He believes in that, and there's no one else I'd rather have in my corner.
Now, you mentioned your division. A lot of people can punch in your division. Fight that's just been recently announced. Askin-Okolie challenges Matty Askin for the British cruiserweight title. I know that you've had experience with sparring both guys. Just give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's a great fight. It's the fight for me. There at this stage, you've got to see them as the two best in Britain. There's a lot of guys just below that level, but they've proved themselves. With obviously Matty Askin's been around a lot longer than Okolie has, and he's a nice, first and foremost, and lovely bloke. Had a lot of time for me. I respect that, and I think he's a good fighter. It's an interesting fight. Someone asked me yesterday, how do you see it going on? A friend of mine asked me, like, sent me the link and was like, oh, how do you see that going? And it's a close fight. It could go either way. It could be a really boring fight. It could be that there's a lot of nullifying involved because they both carry power, so they're going to be too wary, which happens quite a lot when you get two punches. But also it could set light straight away, and it could be a great fight. They could both punch. We can all get hurt, so because of the power in the division. So it'll be an interesting fight, and one I will be watching. Well, not on the night because I've got a wedding to go to, so I can't make that night. But yeah, I'll be looking forward to watching that next day for sure.
What's it like being in the ring with Askin-Okolie? He strikes me as somebody from the outside looking in who's very awkward. You've mentioned the power. He's somebody who carries a lot of power in his right hand. What's that like being in the ring with him, and how often have you sparred him?
I sparred him a bit as an amateur, just on GB assessments. I only sparred him once as a pro. Yeah, he's good at what he does. He likes to keep it long, and he's strong. He's physical. Everyone's beatable though in my division, I believe. There's no, domestically. I mean, you've got obviously at the top level. There's a big golfing class between domestic and world level. You've got obviously the likes of Usyk, who's just done an absolute job on Gasaev, and he's obviously going on to bigger and better things. But then there's going to be a crop coming through, especially in Britain. We've got a lot of good lads coming through. We're all going to improve. So yeah, Okolie he's good at what he does. Can Askin do what he needs to do to win the fight? I'm not sure. I've only did 6 rounds of Matty Askin, and I only did 6 rounds of Lawrence as a pro. So I probably haven't seen enough to judge, or experienced enough to judge who's going to win and how they're going to do it. But yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting fight, and it will say a lot about Lawrence, I think, and how he deals with that step up in class, because it's a much bigger step up than he's used to compared to Watkins and Chamberlain. That's no disrespect to those guys, because they're both nice guys, sparred them both, and they're both talented. But Askin's obviously that level high. He's been there longer. He's more experienced and stuff. So that could be a massive factor, the experience.
Talking about experience, going back to yourself, your last fight saw you go 8 rounds. Very good fight by all accounts. Sadly, I wasn't there to watch it. What do you make of your progression? How quickly do you want to be moving? As I understand, there's potential for you boxing a 10-rounder in your next outing. How soon will it be before we see you mixing it with the likes of a Luke Watkins and Isaac Chamberlain, or an Askin or a Okolie?
How quick, I don't know. That's not for me to decide. I will be doing a 10-round in my next fight, and I'm 90% sure it's going to be for some form of title. So, yeah, I'm just focusing on myself and improving, and then whoever my management put me in with, then that's who we fight. They've got belief in me, I've got belief in myself. So those top guys, they're the ones we're all going for, especially domestically, because everyone loves domestic fights. And then you get enough hype behind the fights, and they become even bigger fights. Later on in our careers, they can be for bigger titles and stuff like that. So yeah, like I said, next year I expect the domestic scene will be massive, and I'll be well involved in it.
Okay, and just lastly, something that you've mentioned a couple of hours ago, you and your idol, George Groves, were punching lumps out of each other in the ring. Tell me about George. How is he? How's he looking? Obviously, he's got his big World Boxing Super Series final coming up against Callum Smith. A lot of talk about his shoulder. Probably nobody better to give an assessment than somebody who spars with him. Tell me a little bit about that.
Face says it all, really, doesn't it? I've got a few bruises. Nose is a bit sore. Yeah, he's looking great, and I'm fairly fit at the moment, considering I had a bit of time off, but I kept fit. I was doing a lot of hill sprints and stuff. I'm a lot bigger than George. I'm a lot heavier than him, and I'm really sticking it on him, and he's dealing with it very well. And I'm got a lot of bruises to show for it and little bumps on the nose and things like that. But yeah, he's looking great, and the jab's as powerful as it's always been. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that fight. And I need to somehow get myself over to Jeddah to watch it.
What's it like sparring with George? He's a super middleweight, you're a cruiserweight, so is that big weight and height difference between you. What's his power like? People talk about his power as a super middleweight. You're, as I say, somebody who's a lot bigger than him. Do you feel his shots?
Oh yeah, George punches like a cruiserweight. Anyone will tell you that. A lot of people. I mean, I think it was Martin Murray who said he punches harder than Golovkin one punch wise, but Golovkin's more. I know that George is heavier, but everyone knows how big a puncher Golovkin is. But George punches like a cruiserweight. There's no doubt about that. And you don't want to get hit with his jab or his right hand because they're all weighty shots, and in 10-ounce gloves you don't want to be stood there taking shots because they'll take their toll, whether it's to gloves, to arms, to body, whatever. They'll take their toll 100%.
How do you see that fight going? George Groves, Callum Smith in Jeddah.
Yeah. George is too clever. I think he's too powerful. Callum's a good fighter, a very good fighter, and he is very neat technically. But sometimes I think people come unstuck with George because of their neatness. Because George is very elusive, and he's very good at judging his distance, and he's very good at controlling distance as well. And he can fight on the inside and the outside nowadays. Earlier on in career, a lot of people try to rough him up and get him on the inside, but he can fight on the inside. And yeah, I can only see a George victory. If I think he could stop Callum. I don't know how durable Callum is because he hasn't been in there with massive punches or massive punches that have got their shots off. Obviously, he's had some decent fights with Rocky Fielding, people like that, but they've, Rocky Fielding's record would suggest that he can punch a bit, but he definitely doesn't punch harder than George, and obviously he didn't get many shots off, so depends on how well Callum can take a punch, but a late stoppage would not surprise me.
Okay, well, I do hope you get yourself a Team Saint GG tracksuit with your name on it for Jeddah. But it's been a pleasure doing this. First time that we've done this, hopefully the first of many. The gentleman, Chris Billam-Smith, thanks very much for speaking to Boxing Social, and I'll catch up with you soon.
Nice one, thanks, I appreciate it.